Let's talk about the other possibility, I guess, and that's peaceful divorce. Peaceful divorce.
I like that. Chill.
You mentioned Donald Trump, it would be good if he came out and announced he was going to put on the ballot secession for every state or something to that effect.
Yeah, look, here's the thing that I think everyone needs to kind of understand is that this idea of independence or a shuffling of the political structure has been in the wind for a long time. Look, I personally been working on the Texas independence issue since August 24th, 1996, right? So I've been at this a long time. But what's amazing is since this undercurrent has been happening, it's not just Texas, right? Alaska has had an independence party since the 80s. The whole Joe Vogler story is pretty impressive. It should be a movie. But there's, burgeoning independence movements in California, in New Hampshire, in Vermont, a lot of other states. I mean, we're hearing talk of Flex It now. But the bottom line here is simply this. The movement toward the shuffling of the political structure and outright independence is not new, and it's not rare, and it's not unpopular. I was sharing a statistic with the guys earlier that most people don't realize. There was a poll, a Survey USA poll that dropped in the summer that showed that support for Texit was at 66% of likely voters in Texas. Right?
Wow.
And that's not an aberration, right? So you roll it back to 2009, the Research 2000 poll, it was about 30-some-odd%. I like to joke that when we founded the TNM in 2005, it was polling in single digits.
What is TNM?
It's our organization, the Texas Nationalist Movement. But, we've always polled higher than the approval rating of the United States Congress, which polls somewhere right above or below leprosy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're not particularly popular. You'll get that later, the leprosy thing, right? But anyway, the whole thing is that this has been a steady progression of support. A lot of it driven by a bunch of on-the-ground work that we've done since 2005, but obviously a lot of it driven by the deteriorating situation with the federal government, where more and more people feel disconnected. So the 66% was not an aberration. It was just
there was a poll done of 5 different regions in the U.S. They asked them whether they supported their region seceding from the Union.
Yeah.
And I normalized, so you have 5 different region pollings, Democrat, Republican, Independent. I normalized for state population and the numbers. And when you normalize, 37.2% of people in the United States want their region to secede.
Well,
some more so than others, right? In the Midwest, independence, the plurality wants secession. In the South, it's the majority with it's Republicans wanting secession. In California, in the West Coast, it's Democrats that want secession. So,
yeah. Well, look, I mean, that's the polling on this issue. The mainstream media, anytime they decide to dig off into the polling on this issue, they do something weird like that, where let's look at it by region instead of by state, right? Which is not the way that it works. It doesn't work by region. Every state, as a political entity, would have the ability to put it on the ballot and withdraw, right? So 2014, during the time of the Scottish independence referendum, that Reuters Ipsos poll did exactly the same thing. And so they lumped Texas in with the Southwest, which was New Mexico and Arizona. And obviously New Mexico is not a state that's going to want to break away, so they did that to skew the numbers. But we got a hold of the crosstabs and the raw data and did the same thing. That was the first time we discovered that Texas was polling at 54% Republican, half of independent voters, and 35% of Democrats, wow. Right? That was the bombshell, but instead it was 35% of people in the Southwest region want their state to leave, right? It's garbage.